Am I the a-hole for telling Mill she was dead to me after she showed up in labor and delivery? Without my mother, for the past 3 months, it's been a very well-known plan that when I 30F went into labor, my husband was going to drive me to the hospital and my Mill was going to pick up my mother, my kids and my grandmother all from one house. Both my Mill and my mom were supposed to be in the delivery room. My gram was to watch my 2 kids in the waiting room. Everyone was in agreement with the plan. Now, my husband and I have 2 sons already and for both births. My mother was present. She helped me through so much of the mental anguish and panic, especially after my last, whom literally almost killed me. I was bleeding out on the table and my mom was the only one able to keep me calm. I needed her to be with me with this baby too, mentally. So we worked this plan out months in advance and everyone was on the same page. However, I go into labor. We make the phone calls to Mill and my mom, telling my mom to be ready and my Mill to go at my mother. An hour and 15 minutes later, Mill shows up at the hospital without my mom, my kids, or my grandmother. She said, well, it's late so we need to just let everyone sleep. It was 9:30 p.m. and then sat her ass down on the chair in the delivery room and jumped on her phone. I told her in a pissed off tone to go get my mom. That was the plan. I needed my mom, etc. and she just wouldn't. At one point saying that she didn't feel up to driving that much. My mom lives 20 minutes from her house, an hour away. So, I told her to get the heck out of the room and that she was dead to me. The amount of resentment and disgust that I felt toward her in this moment is honestly not something I feel I will overcome anytime soon. She was pissed, saying that my mom got to experience 2 births already and how she didn't do anything wrong and she was just being respectful of people's sleep, and where she wasn't leaving. She was actually escorted out. Now, my mom was able to make it to the hospital literally just as I was giving birth. My kids and my grandmother weren't able to make it, which bothers me a great deal. We promised our kids they would be the first to meet their sister outside of us and Granny. I cannot forgive my Mill for this at all. I honestly feel like I hate her with every fiber of my being, but I'm being told I'm taking this too far and that it wasn't that big of a deal. AITA. NTA. Asshole move to change the plan like that without communicating. Bigger asshole move deal to refuse to go back to the original plan. Huge asshole move to refuse to leave the hospital room. Forcing herself into your most vulnerable moment. Bench tripled down. Excellent to point out all 3 points and the escalation of the assholery. And stick with your instincts. She should have felt so privileged to be included this time rather than being hurtful and excluding. Your mother. Escalation. Thank you for adding so much joy to my vocabulary. I would add as a factor the fact she walked in, sat down, and pulled out her phone. Seemed she wasn't even invested in the birth. She only cared about existing in the room at the time it happened. Whereas Op's mother was meant to be there for support. Absolutely self-centered bench. She was there to see the baby and have the grandbaby all to herself. She didn't give a crap about you. What she did was so extremely out of line that she deserves to be cut out for a while. This sinister woman did this on purpose. She wanted to be your family's right so she could cut them up because she's jealous of your mother. The way it all played out was extremely obvious. She needs to experience consequences. Show this entitled piece of work that she isn't above anyone. Certainly not the mother going through labor. Yes, my Mill threw an actual grown woman tantrum when asking if my family would be around for my birth. My Mill has been irresponsible and unreliable for years. So she was not included in the birth or postpartum in any way. My husband felt badly convincing me we should include his parents, so I hesitantly agreed. Lo and behold, the afternoon she's supposed to be at our home to watch my child while husband and I are in the hospital. She can't make it until much later because she has to do laundry. She didn't make it until near midnight, only because my husband harassed her. She 100% did this on purpose because she was mad that she wasn't invited to be involved in more ways. She will never again be included in any way, be it babysitting or any capacity in my or my children's lives other than a quick visit from Grandma. My husband recently invited her to a dance recital and as she is habitually late, I fully said I will leave without her because I will not miss my daughter's recital because of her inability to be a responsible adult. You are NTA. I'm not a professional, but it seems like you Mill did it on purpose so she could be the only one there for the delivery. That was my thought on it too because she wasn't present for either of the other births. We had told her she could be but she had reasons for not attending the other 2. Once being in Canada, and the other I believe was because it was 2 a.m. She is a disgusting person, through and through. She took advantage of you being in an emergency medical situation to change and manipulate plans for her own self-absorbed reasons to keep a mother away from her daughter who needed her. I'm glad you had her escorted out, and I certainly wouldn't be able to be around such a manipulative narcissist ever again. Nta, hold your ground. You are not the I honestly don't even know what to say. That is a new, unspeakable level of heinous. This whole thing, I truly hope to God, is rage bait, because the thought of someone as self-absorbed and narcissistic as Mill existing enrages me to my core. Imagine not being present for a 2 a.m. birth because you need your beauty sleep, but then denying an entire branch of the family the right to visit when the mother-to-be is in labor and has specifically requested their presence, and they've acquiesced at only 9 p.m. at night. Imagine that on top of this, which is already unforgivable, you are depriving a mother and daughter the right to comfort and derive comfort from one another during an experience which in the past almost killed the daughter. Imagine the sheer level of narcissism necessary to be that much of a colossal, gaping, flaming a shot. If I went through what Op did, I might be in jail for my actions after the ordeal. And if my partner told me that I was making a big deal out of it, Op, please, I hope it isn't your partner denigrating your feelings about this EDIT. It's not. Thank God. Sorry for doubting him. I'd also probably have a nice family law attorney lined up to divorce his ours. Or maybe I'd be in jail for that too. Who knows? Shame on her. Op worked out this plan for months. It is so important. Life and death almost. And Mill dares to do this because she is jealous and lazy. Just unbelievable. Edit. For those who want to know where is husband in the story, OP commented husband is as upset and guilty not having a backup plan. It's the rest of husband family siding with Milnta. Childbirth is super traumatic and beyond painful. Your mother was the only one to calm you down the last time when you nearly died. Doctors need that. Your Mill was coached, told the plan for this labor months in advance. It was 9:30 p.m. and everyone would be fine being woken up if they were even sleeping to come meet a new member of the family. Especially if it meant that much to your first to children. This was manipulative, a severe power play, and she even sat down, ignored you, in the delivery room to be on her phone. She made it about herself and didn't even focus on being there for you. She just wanted to say she was the first and only one there. She revealed her toxicity when she said your mom got to be there for to birth already. Like, what's the point? The point is you made plans in advance. You wanted and needed your mother, children, grandmother there. That was the plan. Nothing derailed this plan. Your Mill decided to derail it and act like their sleep was more important to hide her ulterior motives. Whoever is telling you that you're making it a big deal out of nothing, tell them it's a big deal. Because what if a similar traumatic birth happened and you couldn't be calmed down? Your heart rate couldn't be stabilized because you were stuck in a room with a person who disregarded you, your wishes. You couldn't trust in such a vulnerable time. And honestly, DGAF about your health because they wanted to be on their phone. Congrats on your baby. Wish you a speedy recovery. And hope you go NC/LC with this atrocious Mill. Like the sheer audacity. Oof. NTA, she robbed you of your safety and support person for the birth, raising your stress levels and putting you and the baby in danger. She would be dead to me and the 3 kids too. Yep. I can't think of a much more terrible thing to do to a woman in labor. There's no coming back from that. I would tell my mother, who I love, to F off if she did this to my wife. My father would get a talking to as well. I had that conversation with mine in a different situation, not birth, but where she insisted in butting into our family dynamics. I told her to buy out or I was going low contact. She really screwed up her relationship with my wife, which up to that point had seen her as a second mother. I'm not sure why mothers ever think that this is something they can get away with and no consequences. Info. Is your husband the one saying you are taking this too far? No. Thankfully, he is very upset with his mother and feeling rather guilty himself for not establishing a backup plan. We truly didn't feel we needed one. It's the rest of my husband's family, like his uncles, aunts and nieces, NTA. She deliberately set out to ruin your delivery. So yeah, you are totally justified in feeling you can't forgive her. She did a hateful thing and then had the gall to refuse to leave the room. She showed zero respect for you. Therefore, you should not show her any. Respect is earned, not given to someone just because they're older. Those people who told you you are taking this too far can go kick rocks. Your husband supports you. They don't count. You may cool down eventually and allow her back into your life at some point, but don't do that because others are guilting you to do so. That should happen on your timeline, when you are ready. She at least deserves a good long time out. As a consequence, a few months ought to be a good lesson.